What's up, YouTube? It's Heretic here, and so we got another deck profile for you guys. So we're looking at one of our expanded decks for this week. For those of you guys who don't know, I won a league challenge this past weekend. Qualified up to, well, almost qualified for Worlds. I'm up to 285, so now I need to get top 64 at a regional this spring. So anyway, the deck I'm looking at here would only be playable for week 3 regionals due to Fates Collide, but since we're looking at Fates Collide, yeah. So this is more of a fun deck, I think, than anything, but it's really cool to just be able to bring this back into the format without having to worry about low HP EXs. And that's round, of course. So our main attacker is the same as always, Seismitoad. We actually play a stage 2 Seismitoad instead of an EX, of course. So round, for those of you who don't know, does 30 damage for 2 double colorless energies times the number, or for 1 double colorless, sorry, for 2 colorless. 30 damage for every Pokemon in play that has the round attack. Now, when they originally printed these, Palpitoad and Seismitoad both have round. Palpitoad needs a 3rd energy to use the attack, and it only does 20 times, so that's why we don't attack with him. However, in Breakpoint, they gave us a Tympole that also has round for 2 colorless. Granted, it only deals 10 damage for each rounder, but the idea is to evolve up into Seismitoad, and then even if you can't get your Tympoles evolved to Palpitoad, you can still just use them as rounders on the bench to juice up Seismitoad's attack. And this was also what made Meloetta-EX mildly useful or appreciative, was the fact that it had a, albeit terrible, version of round that it could sit on your bench and once again power up Seismitoad. But we're talking about a 110 HP EX that we don't want to see there. So in Fates Collide, the new Whismur also has round, just like Tympole. 2 colorless energies, 10 damage times the amount of Pokemon with round that you have on the board. So we effectively can have up to 8 Pokemon in play, with the help of Skyfield, that is, that have round, which would equal 240 damage with Seismitoad, which kills everything except for a Wailord. So, can't really argue with that. There is a lot of Pokemon to get into play, but most of them are pretty easily searchable, and we really just need to maintain one Seismitoad at a time, so when one gets knocked out, you could just teammates for a Rare Candy and a Toad, or just for a Toad and a double colorless if you already have a Palpitoad down. And not having to rely on getting Palpitoads out as much also helps out with not having to run as many Palpitoads in general, because Tympole has round now. So we can go with a bigger Rare Candy count instead. But we run a 4-2-4 Seismitoad line and 4 Whismurs to start off. And that's really just to round out our Pokemon lineup, shall we say. We also play a 2-2 Octillery engine. We're running a lot of evolutions, and it's a water type. It kind of matches with Seismitoad, so you can take advantage of Dive Ball and Level Ball for a lot of this stuff. So that's why we use Octillery. It's also a little more cost-friendly than Shaman, although when it comes to playing serious decks, we kind of ignore that and just play the best variety. In this deck, I'm actually pretty okay with Octillery, just kind of doing what it does. It also helps out against late-game N, which is fantastic. And then finally, we do play a Keldeo, kind of breaking the no EXs rule. And this is really just so you can put a float stone on it and you can switch out whenever you need. So you don't have to worry about like your, you know, a random Tympole or Palpitoad or like a Whismur or an Octillery just getting Lysandered out and stuck in the active. So we don't have enough float stones for all of those things. So that's our Pokemon lineup. And then for supporters, we play 2 Professor Sycamores, 1 Colress, and 1 N for draw. N is just too powerful right now to not play at least 1 copy of, and in a deck that runs Skyfield, I feel like the 1 Colress is too valuable not to use, especially when we're trying to draw all these evolutions. And then 2 Professor Sycamores is just, like, the Colress is really just the 3rd Sycamore, only just seems better because we're in Expanded. We also play teammates because other than Keldeo, we play all non-EXs, so stuff's going to get knocked out, and then we just set up another Seismitoad. Pretty simple there. The Garchomp deck similarly has Karina to be able to search its Pokemon out. In this instance, we just use teammates and Dive Ball. Play 1 Xerosic. This is for Focus Sash almost exclusively. You could also use it on something like Fighting Fury Belt, or if you go up against a Giratina, you could use it to get rid of their Double Dragon energy so that they don't lock us out completely. So it's got a couple of uses there, I guess, but one Lysander to take out threats before they come up and kill us, and one Hex Maniac, really for stuff like Aegis/EX if it were to show up, or to counter decks that rely pretty heavily on abilities like Greninja, if you were to see it, or just anything else like that. Archeops would be obviously a big deal here because we're trying to evolve all our Pokemon, and Archeops basically just tries to come out and say no. So we need a way around that as well. 3 Skyfields. And so this is just basically so that we can set up 180 plus damage worth of rounders without having to devote every space on our bench and as well as our active 2 rounders alone. Lets us use Octillery and Keldeo and still have enough damage to churn out OHKOs on your opponent's EXs. 4 VS Seekers, get back to quarters that's pretty normal. 4 Puzzle of Time. We only run the 4 double colorless energy, so you're going to want ways to get those back. Puzzle of Time is a great way to do that, especially in conjunction with teammates. Being able to teammates for 2 Puzzle of Time and then just grab double colorless energy right back out of the discard is very, very good. 4 Trainer's Mail, just to kind of reach for more of our item cards more quickly. Maybe you got a puzzle in hand, you reach for a second one, maybe you grab a rare candy or some kind of a ball search card like that, or a supporter, pretty much whatever. Yes, I'll search for some balls now. 3 rare candies. We run a 4-2-4 line, so technically you could argue only 2 rare candies, but because we are also going to end up with Sacred Ash in here to put stuff back. Originally I wanted to run 4 rare candies actually, but I've ultimately decided to settle on 3. It seems to be working consistently, and the fact, usually if you can set up, if you manage, say 3, at most, depending on your matchup, 4 Seismitoads in a game, you're going to probably win that game pretty easily if you can keep your flow going. And when you go against single prize decks like Night March, you can actually, like Night March in particular, you can actually just ignore their Archeops and just use Timple and Whismur and just load those up on your bench, because all their Pokemon are going to have 60 HP or less. So you can just round for 60 or whatever with Timple or Whismur and get easy knockouts that way. If you do manage the Seismitoad, then you can start bringing up their Shamans for more prizes. You also play 3 Dive Ball. This could easily be 4 Dive Ball when you consider how many water Pokemon. I mean, Dive Ball has 15 targets in this deck, which is absolutely phenomenal. You don't really see that anywhere else outside of maybe Greninja. But nonetheless, this is the preferred Pokeball of choice in this deck. We also run 2 Level Ball. This can get any of our Pokemon except Seismitoad and Keldeo. Is able to search all of the lower Timple, Palpitoad, the Octillery line, and the Whismurs, which cannot be searched with Dive Ball. And then we play 2 Ultra Ball just to get anything, because you can just basically throw, it's like Level Ball, but you get the discard, and then you get to search Keldeo and Seismitoad as well. You can also drop your hand count to use Octillery's Abyssal Hand ability, which can be pretty good. And finally, 1 Sacred Ash for our regular item cards. And that's just to send our Pokemon back, and we might have to Sycamore away some evolutions early, or maybe a couple of Seismitoads bite the dust, and so we just bring our stuff back. And that's where that extra rare candy really comes in handy too. A spec of choice is Computer Search. It's kind of hard to really argue with that in a deck like this. I guess you could try to get cute and play Life Dew, but in my opinion, I just think Computer Search is too powerful as far as getting a setup on a Stage 2 deck especially. You could even make the case to run a Skyla in here. Unfortunately, we're a little tight on space, so we're going without that right now. Computer Search just kind of fills that void. We play 2 Float Stones, conjunction with Keldeo, and K in case you prize or something, obviously you can float something else if you have to get it out of the active. And then our 4 double colorless energies kind of round this off. They fulfill our attack needs for Seismitoad, or also for Timple and Whismur if you're up against, the rare expanded Night March deck, which people are talking about now again. So you do have to remember that those Night March decks are going to play Fighting Fury Belt, however, so in the case of a Pumpkaboo, you're probably going to have to zero-sick it. In the case of Joltik, you can still hit 70 damage. That's round. It's a really fun deck. I'm not ready to call it Tier 1. I would definitely put it in the take this to League if you're playing Expanded for fun, I mean, if you already have your invite and you're not playing for anything further, I suppose you could try to take this to Regionals in Week 3. I definitely wouldn't shame anyone who did, because my hat would be off to them for playing something fun. But if you're trying to place highly, I wouldn't. Again, I think it's more of a league or maybe an expanded LC deck at most. But you can definitely surprise some people with it, and it's just it's been a lot of fun to playtest this. I did this I playtested it at a league of mine for an evening, and I had a lot of fun with it. Beat some pretty competitive decks with it. So anyway, that's round with no Meloetta, because we don't need her anymore. So get rid of a crappy legendary. Hooray! So anyway, that's our expanded deck for right now, and I'm Heretic. I'll see you guys later. Cheers. What's up, YouTube? It's Heretic here. Oh, don't do— no! Cut!